because our next guest is Julia van der Broek. She's an ecologist and conservation biologist from Belgium, specializing in tropical botany in the Peruvian Amazon. Julie manages several fauna and flora projects where she leads teams of local biology students and volunteers. I'm excited to travel to the Amazon with Julie. Hello, welcome. Happy Global BioFest.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this amazing event. I'm very excited.
Yeah, where are you calling in from today?
Now, I wanted to present from the jungle, but the internet we have is like not that stable. So I do it from the city Puerto Maldonado, from the hotel.
Okay.
So no jungle birds for today.
No jungle birds, but I'm sure we're going to see a lot in your presentation.
Yeah.
So let's bring that up, and I'm excited to learn more.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right, we're good to go.
Yeah, okay, you can hear me. Good. So hello, everyone. My name is Julie. And for the moment, I'm working at a small biological station in the Peruvian Amazon. And today I would like to share a little bit with you guys what we're exactly doing. So first, let me introduce myself a little bit better. So I'm officially from Belgium, not from Peru. And I did a master in ecology, evolution, and conservation biology. And after my master's, I decided to do some volunteering in this biological station I'm working at now. At that time, it was just existing a year, I guess. And now I became the head of research and conservation area. And in these 4 years now I'm working here, I specialized myself a little bit more in tropical botany. Okay. So a little bit more about the station. So it's located in Madre de Dios, a hotspot of biodiversity. It's more or less 1.5 hours by boat from the city Puerto Maldonado. It's also located in the buffer zone of the National Reserve of Tambopata. Very important. So as I already said, 1.5 hours away, 1.5 hours away from the city Puerto Maldonado also means there is a high impact and high human impact on this forest. There is a lot of illegal gold mining, a lot of hunting, and logging, of course. And for that reason, Kawsay was created. That's the name of the biological station. And the idea is to protect this forest. No? So we have a conservation concession of 177 hectares. And the main goal of what we do is to protect this forest. But in the meanwhile, we also want to study the forest and to train people we want to show them different methods how to study a forest. So we receive different kind of people. We receive volunteers, we receive also just researchers, we receive students from all over the world, also local students. For some of them, we offer the program for free because we want to invest in the future generation. And we want to show them different methods how to study fauna and flora. So here also you can see our station. The station completely runs on solar energy to lower our impact on the environment, of course. No? So that's our station. So what we actually do at Kawsay, so we have several fauna and flora projects, and I will explain little by little each project a little bit more into detail. No? So first of all, the biggest project I think we have is behavioral studies of reintroduced black spider monkeys. So what happened, like 25 years ago, this monkey went to local extinction because people were hunting it for having as a pet or as for eating, and they went to local extinction. And then Tarikaya is a rescue center, an animal rescue center, like 15 minutes from us. They decided to start a reintroduction program of these monkeys. So they started to reintroduce these monkeys back into the wild. And then we, as Kawsay, we decided to study these monkeys to see how good they adapt, how they use the strata, and so on. So we study a few things of these reintroduced monkeys. The first thing is behavioral studies. So that's more about how they interact with each other, how they use this different strata of the forest, how they interact with us, how many birds there are, and so on. So some small results. In like 12 years time, we have 18 newborns in the wild over 2 generations. So they're actually adapting quite good. We can say like we have stable groups of spider monkeys. Another thing we study is also the sleeping and the resting trees. So we want to know if they have a kind of preference for a certain tree. And we saw that during the night, they use higher trees compared to the day. So this is probably because during the day, there's also predators like big eagles coming from top. And that's why they sleep a little bit lower during the day and during the night in very high trees. Another thing we study is the diet. So we're going to identify all the species they're eating, leaves, fruits, everything. And we also study the difference between the wet season and the dry season. So in general, we can say that more or less 70% of the diet contains of fruits. But this, of course, can vary, like it can be different during the wet and the dry season. Okay, here I put some pictures together from the field. So this video on the left, I took like 2-3 months ago. So you can see like people struggling in swamps because we are in the middle of the wet season. So there's swamps everywhere and we just have to follow the monkeys. Sometimes we have to eat in the forest, we have to sleep in the forest. It's very tough field work, let's say. So we also, for this study, we need dedicated people, tough people who can keep going and keep doing what they do. So, okay, so that was the part about the spider monkeys. Now I would like to talk a little bit more about the vegetation study. That's a little bit more my study, let's say. So as I already said, highly impacted forests by humans. So what I want, my goal of this study is to make a description of the forest, because this forest is very understudied. So I want to study the structure, the composition, and the dynamics of this forest. Also, I want to see if there is a big impact of selective logging from the past on this forest, if there is an impact of climate change, and so on. Also, this kind of studies, these vegetation studies, is also very useful for other studies. For example, for the spider monkeys, we can study the habitat and the diet way more easily because of these studies. So how do we do that exactly? So we have I use 2 methods to do the vegetation studies. The first one are permanent vegetation plots. So it's basically big plots, and within these plots, we're going to study the forest. So in general, it's to study the structure, composition, and the dynamics of the ecosystem. The other method is phenology line transects. This is more to investigate when the trees are flowering and fruiting during the year. So first, I would like to go a little bit more into detail on the plots. So how does it work? We have like 10 plots spread over the concession. And within these plots, we are studying all the trees bigger, with a diameter bigger than 10 centimeters. So all these trees get a tag, and we're going to measure the circumference of these trees, the height. Every year we do this. Here you can see me in the forest measuring a very tall tree with a hypsometer. So this hypsometer looks like a camera, and you just have to look through it to the top of the tree, click a button, and then with Pythagoras, the hypsometer will calculate everything for you. So it's very, very useful. And then the hardest part of this project, I think, is the identification of all these tree species. For the moment, all of the trees are almost identified. It's just like 2 or 3 missing, I guess. I put here a picture from Tangarana, the fire ant tree, very famous tree in the Peruvian Amazon, because the ants are very aggressive. You don't want to get stung by these ants. They protect the tree against everything that comes close. And in exchange, the tree gives food and housing for these ants. Yeah, very famous tree, the Triplaris. Okay, I would like to show like a little bit of the results, because of course there's a lot of things, a lot of results from this study, but I will show the most important ones, no? So first of all, I saw that almost 50% of all the trees in these plots are between 10 and 20 meters high, which is quite low. On average, it's like 70.38 meters high. If I compare this with normal tropical forest, it should be 25 meters on average. So this means that the selective logging from the past has probably an impact on our forests we're living in. Then about the species, I could identify 125 species in this 1 hectare of study area. And if I compare this with other areas, like other forests where they also had plots of 1 hectare, it's like similar. It's between 119 and 157. So it's like in between, which is good. Okay, so now I would like to talk a little bit more about the line transects. So first of all, what are these line transects? Well, we have every year 4 transects of 500 meters. In total, it's 2 kilometers. And we're going to change it every year, no? And every month we're going to walk on these transects, and we're going to collect fruits and flowers that fell down on this transect. And we're going to look for the tree. It looks a little bit like this. So we collect all kind of information about the trunk, about the latex they have inside, the smell, if it's hard, is it soft, if they have flowers, everything. And we're going to identify all the trees we have in this transect. So at the end of the year, we have a good idea of which species are fruiting and flowering, reproducing at what time of the year. And then over all these years, so now I have information of 5 years, we can maybe see some impact of climate change too, no? So as I said, I'm doing this now. I'm taking pictures of all these trees like 4 years now. So I have so much information, a lot of pictures, a lot of good pictures. So I would like to make a field guide too, because I know I struggled a lot in the beginning with the identification. And I want to help future students or researchers with identifying the trees. No? So I would like to put everything together and make like a very cool field guides with all these beautiful pictures I have. Okay, so besides the spider monkeys and the vegetation studies, we also have permanent monitoring of clay licks with camera traps. So that's another study we have. So what are these clay licks? These are spots where animals come to. For example, in this picture, you can see here in the middle, howler monkeys, Alouatta sara. So they come to eat the soil. And they can do that for 2 reasons. They can do that to detoxification or to get extra nutrients they cannot have from their normal diet, like fruits and leaves. So like there's 2 reasons. And we study these clay licks. So here you have another video from another clay lick. So you can see 2 types of monkeys. Here you can see squirrel monkeys and capuchin monkeys. It gives also extra information, no? Because now we know these 2 species also travel together. And you can see here this capuchin monkey eating soil from the hole, no? Like they're really coming down to eat the soil. Then we also put some other cameras on other spots. For example, this is a bridge that we use a lot. We just want to see what kind of other animals we can identify with this camera trap. So here you can see a male ocelot crossing our bridge. Even pumas, we have it all, very pretty. And here's another video from one of the clay licks where you can see a tapir with her baby visiting the clay lick. But it's also something extra we can get out of this video, because if you look good here on the baby tapir, you can see a bat, and it's actually feeding on the blood of the tapirs. Now, there's only 3 species in Peru, and they're very hard to see. They're not easy to catch with mist nets. So this kind of videos also helps a lot to give us extra information about the species, about their behavior, and so on. Okay. Then you could already guess it. We also have another study where we study the diversity of bats with mist nets. We're not doing this all year round, but more like a few weeks or months during the year. And for the moment, we have like 47 species of bats, which is actually quite good for a concession of 177 hectares. So it's very, very cool to have good results of this, no? Okay, and then on top of all these amazing projects we do, we also encourage students to conduct their own project, because we think it's important that they learn how to put together a study. So we give them time to write a proposal. We help them collecting their data, do the statistics, write everything out, and to present their results. No, so we also really want them to do that kind of things too. And it's also very exciting for us because some of the people do birds, or here you can see some people doing herpeto. So it also gives us extra information about other things too. No? Okay, so we almost come to the end of the presentation about the jungle. And before I would like to end, I would like to say thank you to all the students, the volunteers, the visitors, everyone that came to help us, because without these people, we couldn't do all this crazy project, because we really need a lot of people to collect all this data. So really, thank you very much for helping us. And yeah, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. So thank you a lot for listening. Please go and visit our social media if you want to know more or to visit us. It's always possible. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, what incredible work that you do, and what a really special part of the world that you get to study each day.
It's very nice. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, and it's just so clear that it's rich in biodiversity. You mentioned the term hotspot. For those viewers online who might not know what that means, can you explain what is a hotspot?
Yeah, a hotspot is actually a spot where you can find high diversity of animals and plants. No, so that Madre de Dios is the area known for being very high in biodiversity.
Yeah, and I'm so curious, what is like a typical day doing field work like for you and the team? What time do you get up in the morning? What's the weather like? What's a typical day like doing this kind of field work?
So it depends a little bit of what kind of activity we do, because sometimes for the spider monkeys, we wake up at like 4 or 5 to be there before they wake up. So we follow them like until 2 in the afternoon sometimes. And then in the afternoon can be another activity. Also, sometimes it will be a full day following these monkeys from 4 or 5 in the morning until they go to sleep, which is around 6 in the afternoon. And for the moment, like we're in between the 2 seasons, no? So the dry season is almost starting, but now it's still swampy. Like we're still swimming in the swamps in between the caimans and the anacondas. It's still happening.
Wow, yeah, that video that you showed in the swamp just looks really wet, and to imagine that then you're wet all day long while you still got to do a bunch of work.
Yeah, I mean, if it's hot, it's not a problem, but there's days it's like quite cold, and I remember that my lips became blue because I was in the water for such a long time. But I mean, the people we have, they're very tough. They keep surprising me. Very tough students we have. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so I'm also really curious. You mentioned a lot of the tools that you use. There seems to be a lot of gear with your field work and with field work in general. Cameras, camera traps, these cool tools to measure the length of trees. What role does technology play in the work that you do?
Well, in the beginning that we had the station, we didn't have all the fancy tools. Even up to today, we don't have the most fancy camera traps. We just have like a few. Now at the moment, we're monitoring like 3 spots because it's very expensive to have these camera traps. Also, a few years ago, we had a flood and we lost all the camera traps because all the cameras were under the water. And then also the humidity on our computers, we have like 4 computers of the station, but they're very slow and very rusty. And so, yeah, we have to, every year we can buy new stuff and more fancy stuff. Also, the hypsometer is something, it's very expensive. It's like $500.
Wow.
But it's very, very useful, because without that, I don't know what I would do with these very tall trees. But we get some support from other small projects. They get money in for also printing maps, binoculars. So we get some support too.
Yeah. Well, I really hope one day to read your field guidebook, because some of these photos are just incredible and things that I've never even seen before.
Yeah, me neither. I get surprised every day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm also really curious about what are some of these personal projects that the students and volunteers create, and yeah, I'm curious about what they're doing and what that's like.
So for the moment, we have a guy that is doing, he wants to study the diversity of frogs in perturbated forest, in primary forest and in secondary forest. So he wants to compare the amount of species he can find, what kind of species, and he wants to compare the different perturbation levels, no? And then we have other people doing like similar, but with birds. So they want to see what kind of birds can we see near to the river where it's very perturbated? What kind of birds do we have more inside the forest, like more primary forest? No? They want to see the level of perturbation in these species, in birds or frogs, or sometimes we have people doing on snakes too. Or a lot of people also do their personal projects, for example, more specifically on the diet of the spider monkeys. So they will be part of our big project, and they do like a small part from it. And they compare dry and wet season. What other things? That are the main things I would say, like frogs and birds, and then the spider monkeys. Yeah.
Wow, there's still so much to learn. I feel like we keep
so much
hearing from a lot of different groups, a lot of different speakers today, that there's just so much out there left to discover. And I think that's a really exciting message.
Yeah, the jungle.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if people online can get involved in any way with this kind of work. Could they come and volunteer? And is there other ways of getting involved?
Yeah, so we have volunteer programs. So that's most of the time starting from 2 weeks, but it can be like a month. It can be up to 6 months. People can stay as a volunteer, but you can also come as a visitor, which is more like a shorter stay, like 4 or 5 days. And it's not really the normal type of tourism, but they get more involved in the studies, no? So they, for example, half a day they join us in our studies in the field work that we're doing that day, or they help us analyzing the data from the camera traps, like that. So that's how they can still help us in a useful way, and they can learn about what we do. So that's a little bit the idea.
Yeah, sounds like a really unique experience and a way to get involved with your work and really biodiversity as a whole. So definitely check out social media and online in order to figure out how you can get involved. Yeah, really neat. I'm also curious about your background. It seems like you have a lot of technical skills, the scientific skills and the photography skills and language skills. So can you tell us, if somebody wants, if there's a kid out there looking to get involved in this kind of work and spend their days in the jungle looking at monkeys and frogs, what steps do they need to take in order to really become an expert in biodiversity and biology?
Yeah. First of all, I studied biology and more specifically ecology, but I also think you can do it without that. I don't think you need very big studies to enter what I'm doing. But of course it helps, no? Like some of the topics helped me a lot. For example, during my master, I did a little bit of botany, but it's not that I was like a master in it. I learned a lot in the field, like just go out and being interested. Also, I didn't create my knowledge just in a week. No, it took me for identifying the tree species. It took me almost a year to get a little bit into it and to be good at it. No, and just like go out, and I really think I also tell it to the students, like, whatever you want, you can do it. If you're very dedicated, you can do it. Like, you don't need a lot of money or big studies to accomplish something. No? I think if you really want something, you can do it, and that's how I roll. Like, that's how I live.
I think your determination and perseverance and really being able to handle being in the swamp all day really are important for this kind of work.
Yeah.
I'm curious what's next for you. What do you want to discover? What do you want to take a look at next? And do you have any projects coming up?
Like, for the moment, I'm still in the middle of these vegetation studies. So I still at least need to collect more data, 1 more year, or until December at least, for the line transects. And then I would like to, as I said, I would like to write the field guide about it, but I also would like to publish the results of this study, because I think it's very important to share all this information, all these results of these studies, because I can do the study, but if I'm not sharing it, no one can use it, no? So I think that's the next step. And then, I don't know, I have to see what else is coming to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing this work. It's really cool to see the actual science come through and to see your results about, what is the impact of logging on the size of trees, and
Exactly.
how this data that you're collecting, you don't really know what you're going to get, and then you compile it all together, and it really means something for the future of this hotspot.
Exactly.
So thank you for doing this kind of work, and make sure everybody to check out online Kawsay Biological Station, and I think we can send out links to that afterwards if people do want to get involved in your work. And happy Global Bio Fest.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.